Welcome to Accounting Modeling. In the today's video, we are going to discuss about the pivot tables. Pivot table is one of the important capabilities that is available in the spreadsheet package, especially when it comes to the analysis of large-scale databases. So this particular tool may come in handy. So therefore, while you are working in organization, so you can make good use of the pivot tables. Let's see what is a pivot table and how we are going to perform different kinds of analysis using the pivot tables. The pivot table are used to analyze, or we call it slice and dice, data to gain important insights. So as I said earlier, when it comes to this pivot table, basically it is used to perform different kinds of analysis, especially based on large-scale databases. So I would say in no time you can come up with different kinds of analysis. So it's a very powerful tool that is available in your spreadsheet package. So by make use of this, you can perform different kinds of analysis, especially when it comes to the organizations what you are working for. So on a day-to-day basis, you may need to handle the large-scale databases. Especially your supervisors, the managers would require you to do different kinds of analysis. Say for an example, that you are handling a kind of database where the information about the company's sales are there. And let's just imagine the company what you work for is operating all around the country. So therefore, when it comes to the particular database, in that database, you may be having the sales of different products in different regions. Then the manager comes to you and he would request an immediate report that he need to know what is the product sale in each of the region. For a particular period, let's say for a particular month, the manager need to know what is the total sales that is generated from each of the product in each of the region. So if you're trying to do this particular task in a manual way, so definitely it would take you days. It would take you days to perform that. But the manager would require you to produce that within, say, 15 minutes time. He is in such a hurry. He's trying to make some decisions, the quick business decisions. So therefore, he would have requested you to produce that in no time. Then, by using this pivot table, in fact, in no time, you can perform that particular analysis. So it's just a matter of few clicks. So in few clicks, you can generate and you can hand that over to the manager. So that is the comfort what these particular tools offer you. So therefore, this is one of the important tools which may come handy while you are working in an organization. So here we have given an example. For example, in a grocery store, the businessman could use a pivot table to quickly determine the following. So they can quickly generate the total spending at each store, the total spending for a particular year, the amount spent on each product at each store. So depending on the information that is available, so you can do different kinds of analysis. You can generate different piece of reports, different piece of information. So whatever the information that you would require, so in fact you can generate that in no time. So that is the is what you would experience in these pivot tables. Then how we are to create a pivot table? So I told you the pivot tables are mainly used in the context of large scale databases. So when you're working in large scale databases, or let's say that you have to perform analysis based on the large scale databases, in order to create a pivot table, what you will have to do is, first you need to go to the data set. You need to go to the data set or the database and click anywhere in that data set. Then you can go to the insert ribbon and then you can select the pivot tables over there. So that's how we start to create a pivot table. So let's see how to do this. So here I have a large scale databases. In fact, there we have records around 1000 records. So nearly 1000 records are there. And here you are given the information about the different customer segments, the different states and different products, and the sales revenue as well as the profit that each of these products had generated. So this is the database is about. Now, based on this particular data set, based on this particular database, if you want to carry out some analysis, all what you have to do is, first you need to get the pivot table. Then how do you do that? So you can place your cursor in anywhere in the data set. Then you can go to the insert ribbon. So here we have the insert ribbon. In that, you can see in the left column, the pivot tables are there. So you may have to click on that. Then see, you'll be directed to this particular kind of dialog box. There we identify two important sections. The first section is that requests you to choose the data set that you want to analyze. So here, in fact, the data set has been taken. You can see. So the sheet what we are in is question number 1. Question number 1. The relevant range has been selected. So once you stay in the data set and once you click on the pivot table, so they would automatically take the relevant input area. Or in some cases, so this may not be automatically taken. So in that particular case, you can simply click on this area and you can select the data set. You can specify the data set. So just in case, if it had not been automatically taken. So you can select the data set. Then if I take you to the next important section, it's about choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. So there it asks you where you want to generate the pivot table. Is it in the existing workbook? If so, what is the location? So if you want to get the pivot table in the same sheet what you work in, so in the same sheet where you have the data set, then you can go to the option existing workbook and you can specify a particular starting point. You may need to get the things started from here. Then the report would be generated over there. But usually we are not going to generate the pivot table in the existing worksheet. Instead, it is recommended, or it's a good practice to take a new worksheet. So if you take the things in the existing worksheet, the danger is that so you have the input and output everything in the same sheet. So therefore sometimes so it may cause different troubles. So therefore we may prefer a trouble-free approach. In that you can go to the new worksheet. So it is always recommended for you to go to the new worksheet. Then you can say OK. You can click on OK. See what happens. You are directed to a new worksheet. So here they have taken it as sheet 1. Then in this interface you can see two most important things are there. In the left corner, in the left side, you can see the pivot table is there. So in fact, this is where the pivot table would be generated. Then at the same time, you can see on the right side, we have pivot table fields. We have something called pivot table fields. So let's see what those are. The ship date is there. The customer ID is there. The segment, state, product, sales, profit. So that's what you have. So in fact, what is this? What are these? They are the table headings. So if you can recall, that was the headings, what it was there in the data set. So in fact, that was the columns. That was the columns in the data set. So if I just take you back to the question, you can see the ship date, the customer ID, the segment, state, product, sale and profit. So these are the table headings. These are the dataset headings. In fact, those are the columns in your data set. And here you have those fields. So we call it the pivot table fields. Pivot table fields. More technically, those are the pivot table fields. Then, depending on this pivot table fields, you can generate different kinds of reports. You can carry out different kinds of analysis, right? Then most importantly, here you can see several other areas. What is that? Here it says you have to drag the field between the areas below. You have to drag the things. And put them. You can put them in the different areas. So we may start with something that is comfortable. The columns. The columns. Whatever the pivot table field that you drag and drop over here, it would be arranged in a table in the columns, right? Similarly, you have the rows. And when it comes to a table, you are quite familiar with rows and columns. Whatever the pivot table fields that you drag and drop over here, it would be taken in the rows. It would be taken in the rows, right? So let's just explore that. Let's say that I want to take the different customer segments to the columns. So let me drag this and drop it in the columns. See what happens. In the pivot table, it starts getting created. Now, these segments have been taken in the columns of a table that you are going to generate. You have three segments: the consumer, corporate, and home office. Similarly, let me drag the product. Let me drag the product to the rows and let's see. See what has happened. Here in the pivot table, there they have taken these rows, the product, into the rows. So this would be the product that is there in your data set, the large scale data set. What you have here, you have the products and here you have the segments. Now this is basically the structure what you may want to generate. Now an important thing is missing. So you need to fill this area. Now you have identified what are the products that you have, and also you have identified what are the customer segments that you have, right? Now you might need to know the sales of each of these product according to the different customer segments, right? Then how you can get that? You can see in this pivot table fields, there you have something called values. If I drag this sales field to this values, see what happens. In no time, you have generated a particular analysis. Here you analyze the product sales for different customer segments. So in no time, it's just matter of 3 clicks. You have used your time to put the segment to the columns, put the product to the rows, and sales to the values. So in just a matter of few minutes, you have analyzed the data set according to your requirement. So in that, you wanted to know what is the sales that is generated by each of these products in different customer segments. So there you have done. And now you may have a kind of idea about what is the columns and what is the rows and what is the values. Then what about this filter? So here, this would help you to further expand your analysis, right? Further expand your analysis. Say for an example, here you know at the moment the different products that you have and the sales relating to the different customer segment. And let's say that you want to add one more criterion. Say you need to know the sales of each product for different customer segments, and you need to know how this had been done in each of the state. According to the state, you want to know what is the product sale for different customer segments. In that, I can add a filter. Say state. Let me add over here. See what happens. You can see here the filter comes. State. You can select different things. So you can select one particular region and see what is the situation. Say okay. See, in the Arizona state, so this was the situation. This is the situation. Say that you want to know the situation of California. This is it. So you can filter the data and you can know the information. Right? So that is what the filter would do. So if I keep all, so the all information is there. So relating to all the regions or in that particular country, this is the situation. But if you want to dig deeper, if you want to know it in different regions, say New York, and this would be the situation. And say it is in Texas, that may be the case. So likewise, you can get the customized kinds of analysis. So this is basically how the pivot table would work. So if you want to remove this, you can just remove this tick item, then it would be vanished. Right. If I just go to the pivot table, so we have discussed about how to create the pivot table, how to initiate the creation of the pivot table, you have witnessed, and then we have discussed about how you are proceed with the pivot table. So in that we witnessed that you need to drag the table headings, or we call it fields, into the desired boxes, namely the row labels, the column labels, values, and even the filter. So in fact, we have witnessed all these things. Now it may make better sense. So when come to these row labels, you know, those are the fields dragged here will be listed on the left side of the table. So the rows, in the sense, it would be listed, whatever the fields that you put to the row labels, so it would be listed on the left side of the table. So it would represent the rows. Similarly, whatever the fields or whatever the table headings that you drag to the column label, that would be listed across the top row. So in fact, that would represent the columns. So this would be the very basic thing. The row labels has to be set, the column labels has to be set. Then most importantly, you have to get the values. The fields drags here will be summarized mathematically in the table. So once you drag and drop it to the values, say sales, they would compute by default the totals. By default, the totals would be calculated and you are given with the total value, right? But if you want to have some other information, let's say that you want to have an average information or you want to have some maximum information, something as such, would it be possible to do that? By default, they would get the total would be generated. Yes, so if you want to have something other than that, say average value, or it's a kind of maximum value or minimum value, yes, even that can also be generated. So the customization is possible. However, if you want to change the method of calculation for a data field to average, count, or something else, you can simply click the data field and choose the value field settings. So in order to change the method of calculation, by default it takes the sum. If you want to have a different calculation, all what you have to do is you can go to the value field settings and you can change that. So we may see that later, right? Then we have the report filters. For fields, drag to the report filter box. You can easily pick any subset of the field values, so the pivot table will show calculations based only on the subset of the field values. So when come to these filters, you can add another dimension to your analysis. You can add another dimension to your analysis and you can filter, you can perform different filters to get whatever the information that you would require, Now let me go back to the data set and let's try to see a different kinds of analysis. Now you are aware of this, right? Let's say that you need to know the product sales. You need to know the product sales according to the different states, So what you have to do, you can add product to the columns, or even you could have taken that to the rows, and then you have to take the state to the rows. Here you are trying to generate the product sales according to the region, right? Product sales according to the region. Then you need to know the sales, so therefore you can have the sales over here. You can simply drag it and drop them in the values. Then the analysis is completed. Now let's say that you want to do a kind of filtering based on, say, segment. You want to know the product sales according to the different regions, and in case you may require to know the product sales according to region based on the different segments. So therefore you want to filter this data according to the customer segment. Then simply I can take this segment to the filter. Now at the moment we have all. So if you want to try it for customers, you can say customers. And if you want to have it for home office, yes, you can customize and see that, right? So let me by default keep it as all. So this would be the situation for all. Then let's say that you want to know the average sale of each product in each of the region, right? Here we have got this total sales, right? So you want to take something other than that. In order to do that, you can do that in two ways. The one thing is you can go to the values. In that you can click on this drop down menu. Then you can see the menu comes and there you have the value field settings. In the value field settings, you can see several functions. Inbuilt formulas are available. So inbuilt functions are. So if you want to have a count, you can say take a count. If you want to have the average, you can take that. If you want to take the maximum, minimum, the product, so likewise standard deviation, different kinds of things are available, right? Let's say that you want to get average as we agreed, then you can say okay. See, now it generates the average. Now it generates the average values. By default it takes the total, but if you want to have it customized, yes, it is possible. All what you have to do, go to the values and right click on that. So left click on that, take the value fields and do that. Not only that, even you can do different formattings here. So here you can see the numbers are a little bit difficult to read. Then you can format the numbers. You can take the numbers and go to the numbers and say that you want to keep it to 2 decimal places and you want to take the negative numbers as like this, and also you want to use the separators. Let's see. Then say okay. See, now it is more conveniently read. The 1000 separators are there, 2 decimal places are there, so it can be easily read. So this is one way of accessing the value field settings. Or otherwise, you could have easily right click on the data set, place the cursor in somewhere in the table, and you could have right click and you could have gone to the value field settings. Again, you would be ended up getting into the same. Now let's say that I want to take the total. So therefore I may select sum and say okay. So this is how we do that. Now you can see how easily we can manage that. Let's say that you want to see the sales that you had made for the corporate segment. So this is how it had been carried out. So in the Arizona region, so this is the sale of appliances, and the machines this much likewise, right? You can see the different kinds of values it had been generated. Now let's go back and let's figure out now let's see how to change the layout of a pivot table. So it's a very simple thing, and let's see. So here it says you have to place the cursor anywhere within the table, the pivot table. Then you can click on the design tab. There you have the report layout in the layout group. Then you can choose an appropriate layout there. So let's explore that. Now this is the data set that you have generated. So this is the analysis that you had carried out. Now you want to change the layout. In order to do that, so all what you have to do, you have to place the cursor anywhere in the data set and go to the design. In that, you can see the different layouts are there. So especially the different styles, the style options and layouts are there. So if you are not comfortable with this particular style, you can change the style. You may go to a different style. Then similarly, if you are not happy with the report layout, you can go to the layout and you can change the layout. So now it is in the show in compact form. So if you want to change to a different one, you can choose show in outline form. Try this out, and this would be the outline form. So now it is, so the slight change had been taken place. Now it is in outline form. Then if you try something else, the tabular form, then you can see the grid lines had came into the picture. You couldn't see the grid lines earlier, but now the grid lines can be witnessed. And again, yes, basically this would be the three formats available. So by default, it takes the compact form. You can go to outline or tabular form. So now we are taking the tabular form over here. And also when come the blank rows, so there is another option. So if you want to insert a blank line after each of these items, you can take this option. You can use it as necessary. And when come to the grand totals, so here you can see here the totals have been taken according to the different products and as well as according to the different regions the totals have been taken. So if you want to get rid from the totals, yes, it is possible. You can say you can off it for rows and columns. If you take the grand totals off for rows and columns, you can see no longer the grand total would be shown. See, no longer the grand totals are there. The grand totals are no longer there. And if you take the option for on for rows and columns, yes, then it gets appeared by default. So that is there. Then if you want to keep it only for the rows, you can say on for rows. Then not for the columns, the totals would be there for the rows. So likewise, even you can do this for the columns, only for the columns, not for the rows. But by default, you have it for both rows and columns. Then the subtotals, if you have the subtotals, you can do certain things according to the subtotals. But here we do not have any subtotals, right? So you can try different option. These are some of the things that is just add some glamour to the output that you had generated. So you want to make it eye pleasing, so you may try this out, right? Now let's see another important aspect. It's about summarize the pivot table by using a pivot chart. Say that you want to take this analysis to a graphical form, right? You want to take this analysis to a graphical representation. Yes, that particular option is even available. So here you can go to the pivot table, and then there you have to go, you have to place the cursor somewhere in the data set, and then you may go to the analyze. So in that you can see, so there's a section for tools. In that the pivot chart can be seen. So let's get the pivot chart there, and here different kinds of the charts can be generated. So let me start with the default one, the column one, and let's say okay. So when you take that, you can see there you have all the products and all the states. So here it is quite difficult for us to see. So therefore, depending on the requirement, let us restrict the product for, say, at this moment we want to see only the total sales of the book cases, chairs, and paper. Let's say at this moment we need to look at or compare 3 products, and you can say okay. And let's say that you want to see this for the California state. So let's do a kind of filtering there as well, the California. So this would be the situation. In California, you can see the book cases, the chairs, and the paper. So now we will provide you with some meaningful comparison. Some meaningful comparison is provided there. So here also you have the option to do this for the consumer segment, or depending on the segment you can do another level of filtering. That is also there. You may explore these options in while you are free, right? So the different capabilities are there. These are some of the basics. So let me add some more product, then you can see. So let me add 3 more products, and this would be the situation in the California state. So this is how the sales had been carried out. At the moment we can see the machines is the highest income generator, the highest revenue generator. So if you go for all, this would be the situation for California. So this would be a useful piece of information as far as the managers are concerned. So if they need to know what would be the highest contributor and what would be the lowest contributor, so once you depict it in the graphical form, you can very easily notice that. So let's say that you want to see this situation for, let's say, the Illinois, and you can select that and say okay. So this would be the situation in Illinois. So if you want to compare two regions, yes, it is even possible. Yes. So this would be the comparative figures. Comparative figures. The situation of California is there, and the situation that of Illinois is also there, right? So you can make it different kinds of things. You can bring different kinds of things to the picture, and you can make some good sense out of this. So it is something purely up to you. You can perform different kinds of reports, and you can see different kinds of analysis you can witness, right? So that is how you have to explore the things and witness. So it's a very basic kind of bar graph. The graph we have taken, the column graph in fact we have taken, and we have witnessed that. So while you are free, you may explore some other kinds of tables as well. Some other kinds of tables as well. Then let us go to another important aspect. It's about how to update a pivot table with new data. How to update a pivot table with new data. So here you are working in a particular data set. Then if some changes happen to this database, let's say that some of the figures in the database at the moment is inaccurate. Now you want to replace that particular data with the new data, the correct data you want to replace the wrong data with. In that particular case, if you make that change to the database, that may not automatically reflect in the pivot table. It may not automatically come to the pivot table. But instead, you may have to do one particular thing. So it is a very simple thing. All what you have to do is, if there is a particular change in the data set on which that you have drawn the pivot table, you have to go to the data set and you have to refresh that. So once you refresh, by placing the cursor in the pivot table, so you would see the updated scenario had been brought into the picture. So that's how we update a pivot table. So let's try this out. So let me go back to the database and let me get rid from this. I have just simply deleted that, and let me restore some information. So let's take the original situation back. All the markers, and yes, right. So this is the original situation, and let's say that if I go to the data set, and when come to this Kentucky state, the consumer sales, we have mistakenly enter the bookcases sales as 261,960. Let's say that the correct figure should be 561,960, right? And let's see at the moment how much is the total of the bookcases in the Kentucky, right? Let's go back and see in the Kentucky. So you want to say the bookcases sales at the moment 261,960 is there. Now let's change that figure and let's see whether it reflects over here. If it reflects, this has to be 561,960. Let me change that information and make it 561. Okay, now I have changed that. I just want to see whether it is there. No, at the moment it is not. The pivot table is not being updated. Then what you can do, you can simply right click on the table and you can refresh the table. So once you refresh that, the new circumstance had been accommodated. So in fact, this is one of the questions that was raised by one of you during the last lectures. So how to get the updated scenario into the pivot table, and this is how you would take it. It's just a matter of one click. You have to right click and you have to refresh the table. Then the updated scenario would get accommodated. And this would be the some of the basic things that you need to know with respect to the pivot tables. So, but the expectation is you should not confine to what we have explored, but there would be many more aspects to be explored. So it is something up to you. You may explore this particular pivot table capabilities and you may enhance the analysis that you would perform. Thank you.